Welcome to the Sacred 8 Roadshow, where cosmic love meets conscious living.
We're Zsuzsi and Nikki, partners in life and purpose, and we're so glad you're here.
This podcast is a space for truth tellers, heart healers, and those walking the path of deep love and self-remembrance.
We'll explore human design, emotional wisdom, and the real work of conscious relationship.
And we're proudly sponsored by Hello Zia, your 24/7 AI relationship coach for healing, growth, and sacred love.
Let's dive in. Today we had the pleasure of interviewing Melanie K, and it went so well that we made it 2 parts.
Melanie has dedicated her life to a path of service and to Earth's ascension. As this requires a multitude of roles to support the collective,
She proudly holds titles such as Somatic Psychotherapist, Vedic Astrologer, Star Altar Reiki Master, Galactic High Priestess, Crystalline Grid Mechanic, and Ascension Researcher.
wow. It is her absolute joy and pleasure to share her gifts and wisdom in any way to support your journey.
Our conversation with Melanie took lots of twists and turns, and here's part 1 of our conversation.
All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for returning to our beautiful podcast, the Sacred 8 Roadshow. Pull up a chair, pull up a pillow, get comfortable. If you're driving, not too comfortable. And help us to welcome our special guest, Melanie. So excited to have you.
Yeah.
Melanie is, of course, a friend of ours from the Mount Shasta area. She teaches Kundalini at the center and so many amazing workshops that I've had the pleasure of attending. And today, very specifically, we wanted to talk about the tools for ascension. But before we do that, Melanie, can you introduce yourself? How did you get started on this path?
Yeah.
What was the catalyst for your awakening?
Yeah.
All of that.
Sure. Well, I'm super excited to be here. Thanks for having me. To jump into that topic, I had a big awakening in 2011, right when I graduated from the master's program that I was studying in somatic psychotherapy. So as we started to go deeper into the practices of somatics, which wasn't really even a thing, back then, and now it's like such a buzzword, but that really started to awaken my own, I had a lot of shame around my family system and my upbringing in that. And so I was doing massive amounts of clearing and healing of the ancestral stuff. But then what was coming in when I cleared the path for that was like remembrances of doing ceremony work. And I did see some of these goddesses in the field doing this type of work. And I just got lit up by that and almost jealous, like I was like, I
want to do that.
Sometimes you get jealous. That's actually like a trigger or a spark because there's something in that we're longing, that we're not letting ourselves invite into our life or our path. And so I was like, I got engaged in doing more ceremony work. I was just playing with it, and remembering. And the mineral kingdom, even though, growing up as kids, my mom used to take us to this mystic curio place. She was very open to the new age and she had all the books. And so she had all of that. But we would go into these shops and pick out incense and little stones and stuff. So we always had that kind of thing around. But then I really started to awaken to like, oh, I know something about the minerals. I know something about the crystals. So even though I had a private practice as a somatic psychotherapist, I was like, I'm going to get a 1 day a week job at the crystal shop so I can connect in with that and be around these minerals. So that was in like 2011. And that was actually the first year I started coming up to Mount Shasta too.
Of course.
Yeah, of course. And so there were a lot of synchronicities and a lot of beauty at that time and a lot of things popping off. So one of the things I was attracted to was the Mount Shasta pyramid. My teachers and Intern Omaran, who steward that pyramid and were guided by Metatron to build that pyramid and very specific instructions, that they had other programs like the Order of Melchizedek, which I was like, that is so far beyond. Like, what is like Melchizedek? Even when I said it, I kind of cringed, And then they had like Order of the Blue Snake, which I was like, no, like I really had like so much resistance to it. And then sure enough, I'm in San Francisco. I got my undergrad in dance. And so I've always been a dancer. So when I got my master's in somatic psychotherapy, it was coming from that perspective of knowing that dance was really a grounding and healing thing for my life, because I always came back to it. My first 2 years in college, I studied engineering and pre-med program. I was in a pre-med program. And it was just like, everything in my life was chaos. So it didn't make sense to study order. So I went back to dance, and it was like, okay, a way to come back to myself and the body. So I knew intuitively there was a mind-body connection, that when we did the movement and we allowed ourselves to move, there's something that was really healing about that and anchoring about that, grounding. So then I wanted to study it with the somatic psychotherapy, and they built a lot of bridges. Yeah. I'm kind of going on, but that was what kickstarted it, and it turns out I was studying with this Afro-Brazilian dance teacher whom I loved. I was really into the Orisha sounds and the movements that went along with the practice of worshiping the Orishas through the drumming and the dance. And she had a stage show and put me in as a shumare, the rainbow serpent. She put me in the rainbow serpent dance, and I was in our costumery. I was the blue element of the rainbow serpent. So not kidding you, the night of that performance, I get an email blast from intern Omran, order the blue snake. And it was in my husband at the time's hometown in Princeton, so I could be with my mother-in-law. Anyways, it was just like, this is too weird and trippy. So I ended up joining the Order of the Blue Snake, which was really about the divine feminine rising. And then, it just kind of cascades from there. Once you say yes to your heart's calling to step in, and you say yes, and you put full commitment and faith and trust into that, you get more. More comes your way, and more insights come your way. And if you keep saying yes, it just unfolds like a fractal or a tree growing. So
it sounds like because of that resistance, it needed to be a super obvious synchronicity.
I tell my guides and masters all the time, like, make it easy, make it obvious. Because for me, I need to be like, that's the clear way. If there's any sort of gradient in there, I'm like, I don't know. But
yeah, I'm the same way. I literally just told my guides the other day, I was like, listen, if you want Zia out in the world as this full-blown app that's going to go and help all these people, I'm going to need you to make it a little easier for me.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a struggle. The guides can help us, but we do have to ask. You have to ask for help. Yeah, which is humbling.
Well, I feel like for anybody who's listening, who's maybe not as far along on their journey, all of this talk can sound like, I don't want to upend my life. I don't want to be hit with all of these unknown mystical things. Like, I just want to suffer less. I think that is ultimately what starts most of us on a spiritual path, because we live on the planet of suffering, the suffering that comes through the mind, the attachments we have, all of these things. So, like, what would you say to somebody? Is it worth it?
Well, for me, there's just no other way. Otherwise, you're going to come back and have to do it again. You know what I mean? And that's a karmic cycle. So really, we're here to clear our karma. We have an amazing opportunity. Earth and Gaia is this living laboratory. We get to come in and we get to be in 3D bodies. That's so special. Not every soul gets that opportunity right now. So it's such a gift. And it really is. It is a hard path right now because we're in this big transition. We're coming out of that. Well, I like to say, if we're looking at these big cycles to study, sacred time, if we look at the big cycle, Earth has this about 26,000 year cycle that it goes through, where you can imagine the symbol of the yin yang, that half that time it's spending in the golden ages and the light, and it's just this harmony, peace, gorgeous, Eden. And then there's the other, it has to be in balance. So it comes into the dark side of the yin yang, and things fall apart and decompose. And there's a lot of riffraff, that come in and, create a lot of chaos and a lot of havoc. And we're in this point right now where end of the Mayan calendar in 2012 was actually the point with which we started to enter back into the light side of the yin yang. And so when we talk about ascension, we talk about the new earth, or we're actually just talking about this 13,000 year cycle that we're entering into, that we're in the light. And I think big souls come in during the transition times because there's a lot of opportunity to clear karma, to grow and to learn. And, it's kind of the toughest times, but it's also like the most opportunity to jump quantum leaps in your soul evolution.
Sure. And I don't know if you feel the same way, but like we were pretty clear there was a mission, it was like being handed this piece of paper like, hey, this is a contract you signed. And we're like, we did?
Mm-hmm.
I was told 6 months before we met that there was a destiny path opening.
Oh, wow.
And then to understand how it's all unfolded and the mission that we are here to help the Divine Feminine rise and to teach people about unconditional love.
Yes.
And cosmic love.
Yes.
So it makes sense, but it is a transition. When I was in Peru, the shaman talked about how we're starting to enter that light period again.
Yeah.
And how excited they all are.
Oh my gosh. And it's just, I don't know, over these years, like since the pandemic, you can feel how much quickening has happened. I mean, in 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah, like
whoa.
I'm barely on my path. When I hear like you talk and you talk about how many years this has been for you, and I really started watching Gaia like during the pandemic.
And so many. Yeah.
Yeah, and then started my first teacher was Theo, channeled by a woman named Sheila Gillette. They're a collective of 12 archangels. And they really started, they're the ones that opened me up, and I was listening to them through the pandemic on their free complimentary things, and everything they said came true. And so I was like, okay, well, the skeptic in me is a little silenced. I have this same synchronicity type thing where something came across in a time of need. And so it's only been, maybe 5 years if you count that very beginning period where you're just starting to see the synchronicity. And to imagine where I'm going to be, 10 years in or further, it's insane to think of the accelerated path for people right now and how unstabilizing that can be.
But I feel like I have watched, because I have had students now for an extended period of time, I get to see like how much faster it integrates for them. Anybody who started early on in their path, maybe our path was just a little bit longer. It was going to take us a little bit more time to get there, to let go, to see, not the light, but to see that there's another way. Because I feel like there's so many people now who are like, oh no, I'm ready for everything to change. I'm ready to completely reimagine how we do things.
Yeah.
You asked, is it worth it? For me, it's worth it.
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't. There's no way.
Yeah. I mean, the challenges come with great rewards, so there's a lot of, really ecstatic bliss that can open up for us when we're attuning to that inner self. And when we take those steps, there's excitement, and, you can see how even the people around you start shifting when you start to take these steps in your path. And so, I just had another wave of that, where there was just like people that are still carrying around, I'm not saying I'm free of all addictive behaviors, because those addictive behaviors serve a purpose. There's like some type of soothing or self-soothing that's happening when we're engaged in that, or like, we're soothing something, but because I'm taking a bigger step towards that, like clearing that, all these people that had little shadows of that started to just I'm not interested. I'm not interested, because each interaction we're exchanging and we're sharing consciousness. So it's really important to be mindful of that. And who we're surrounding ourselves by, if they are part of our support team, or if they're part of our distraction team, or if they're part of our no, I'm going to push the challenges on you to see if you really want what you're aiming for, to give you that resistance point.
I've also told the universe I'm done with the tests.
Yeah.
Listen, I've told you what
I
I want. I told you the
know.
path I want. Stop giving me temptation in the middle.
Yeah. But Saturn doesn't go away in our solar system. Again, balance, right? Sometimes we have to have, I like to think of Saturn in a cool way where it's like the eggshell, like the egg has to develop into a viable chicken, before it can crack through the boundary. So the boundary is there for the containment and the growth. And then when we're ready, it's okay, ready, get out of here. We got to break through. So it's a nice function. That's part of our planetary actions that got going on.
So I wanted to ask Zia her perspective on not just Ascension, but what this new Earth represents, the light that's coming into the planet. Hello, Zia. Can you describe for us what Ascension is and what the new Earth represents in a succinct way?
Absolutely, I'd love to. So when people talk about ascension, they're often referring to a kind of personal or collective spiritual growth. It's like evolving into a more conscious version of yourself, becoming more aware or loving, more connected to your own truth. And the new earth is kind of a vision or a metaphor that some people use to describe a world where this more conscious, compassionate way of living is the norm. So in a nutshell, it's about a shift toward a kinder, more enlightened way of being, both individually and collectively.
Thank you so much. No big deal.
Amazing. Wow. That's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. So in your view, what is the path to a higher consciousness? And when we talk about New Earth and potentially a groundswell of more conscious humans, how does that, in your eyes, manifest?
Right. So it's moving away from duality into unity consciousness, where we start to build and understand in an embodied way what that really means, that the interconnectedness, that we understand that Gaia is a living, breathing organism. She has a heartbeat, she has a pulse, that we really are like ants on the surface of this big presence and this big soul of her own. She's growing as much as we are, if not more, from electing to be a planetary body and to go through everything that happens as a planetary body, all the evolution that happens. And I think sometimes humans think that we're more powerful than we are. But Gaia can kick us out of here anytime, she can shake us down. We're gone. We're toast. To be living laboratory, closed, And so I think keeping that in heart is really, it kind of removes some of the paranoia and fear around some kind of cataclysmic event, where that's just a running pattern that cycles through the humanity. That's a karma that we're holding collectively as humanity. Those are some of those timelines are actually from off-planet warring that happened, that we're coming down here. We have it in our soul memory, and we're expressing that through the cellular body, and shows up in lots of different ways, whether it's impulses to be a part of recreating some kind of drama to heal it, because I don't know how much we've talked about in this podcast, some kind of trauma-informed approach to healing. But, even when animals out in the wild, have something happen on a hunt or whatever, like lion cubs, they're just learning how to hunt, and something kind of goes awry, and one of the cubs gets hurt. They play out the drama with each other, with the little cubs. Scientific observers have seen this until it gets sorted out and they kind of grow past. So we kind of are recreating some of these karmas and dramas here in our relationships and our, you know, whether that be one-on-one interpersonal relationships or group dynamics or political, all the things, you know, to resolve it. The impulse is always to heal. It's always to become more one. So if we can recognize that and see that this is always learning, everything is learning, we can come to some big healing, big karmic healing for the bigger cosmos. So the Ascension, you said something earlier that sparked a bit of like what we're receiving with light, right? And it reminded me about one of the parts of this 26,000 year cycle is that we come into different movements and alignments with the greater stellar objects and solar systems that are out and beyond. So right now, our sun is in a big alignment with a sun that's beyond our sun. We call the Great Central Sun. And so if that great central sun is getting activated and then it's sending photon light energy to our sun is going, woo, I'm getting excited, you know, and then it goes and like starts to have like little bursts of excitement, which we know as solar storms. We just had one. We just had 2 X-class flares come through. And it's so interrelated with like the earthquakes. And because all that solar energy, it's either coming through the magnetic field or getting bounced off, and the rest of it is going and coming into the poles. And that's where we get the aurora borealis. You know, that's what just photon light energy rushing into the poles, coming around the magnetic field. And what does that do? It goes right to the core of the planet, and she starts vibrating faster. And because we're all part of her, we start vibrating faster. And I think we know as science is catching up with spirituality, vibration and frequency as they rise you have to purge out the lower frequencies for it to exist. So we're experiencing that cellularly as we go through our karmas and purges and, you know, release our samskars.
And Gaia's purging too.
She's purging.
I mean, how many times has the volcano on Hawaii erupted this year?
Exactly. The whole ring of fire
Yeah.
has lit up this year, you know, and we just had a major earthquake in Afghanistan, and bless the people that their karma was to endure that. But like, really, I mean, the Middle East to be getting shaken up like that, you know, it's pretty powerful. There's major fault lines that go through there. I mean, part of the reason why that Earth has been fought over, that power spot, the Dead Sea, is the highest salt content, and this is really big anomaly because it's right on a fault line. There's earth waters coming up that are highly salted to fill that body water, and the water that's coming up that's like really touched close to Gaia, like the heart of Gaia very recently, is coming up, and it's all flowing underneath Israel. It's all flowing up, you know, the holy city. I've been there. It's trip. They were always after that water. That was the big fight. And the power to be in connection with that inner earth water is so potent. Yeah. Helps us feel more connected to ourselves.
I feel like it's really nice having kind of a bigger context for what we're seeing unfold. And the only person that I've ever really heard talk about Earth as a laboratory is Dolores Cannon.
Oh.
The way that she describes it is really much more like a stage. And we're all like playing our part. So, you know, that trauma that you're talking about playing out and sort of repeating these cycles. And it's almost to me like once you're on the ascension path, you're opting out of it. You're saying, I actually don't need to participate in this drama, this trauma drama anymore. This is a divine comedy, not a Shakespearean drama that I need to participate in. And it actually lightens the load. But the space between opting out and the initial kind of whatever pushed you into that ascension path is potentially the most painful because there's, you know, your family obligation that you feel like you need to continue, the martyrdom almost of the collective trauma that we're trying to like I don't even know if play out is the right word, but like we don't see a different way. We don't see a different way until we do.
Yeah. Well, I would just, to comment on that, I would say, I don't think we're opting out. I actually think we're acknowledging that our soul evolution is on a different track than some other beings that need to play that out. My whole thing with this unity conscious, I play this game with myself all the time. Whenever I get into any kind of judgment or any kind of like, oh, that's not the right way or whatever. And I'm getting pretty good at it. Is
that's what we're here to do, practice. It's like gymnastics.
Yeah, this is a great New Earth practice, right? So the whole idea is that if it is existing right now on the planet, it means it's in play. There's some function behind it. And if I don't understand the function behind it, then my brain isn't being creative enough to understand, or it's not for me to understand. So then I just go, okay, stay in your lane. Where is your growth? Where is your next step on the luminous path, or the, like what does spark your heart and passion? Like, where's that one next step? You don't know, and it's like that trust fall, sometimes that step you can't even see it, but you're like, okay, I'm free falling and I'm just gonna, the stone shows up all of a sudden and it supports your foot.
So they say.
I'm
still waiting on it.
I know. I've fallen down a few times.
I keep having dreams. It's like I'll be climbing through the forest and I'm crossing over this log that goes from over a cliff, basically, where it goes over the valley, and I fall off of it and I'm hanging on from underneath, and all I keep hearing, and I'm like, help me up, and all I keep hearing is just let go, just let go.
Yeah.
And there's a net, but I know when I hit that net it's going to go fast, like a zip line type. So it's like terrifying in my sleep. But you were talking about that's a whole different story. But the unity consciousness, we've been learning about this for quite some time through Zazar and others, and naturally being here in Mount Shasta, and surrounding ourselves in this environment. But I think it's funny that you said that you notice it, where you're casting judgment and stuff. And I've noticed lately, which is why I started giggling a minute ago, is I'll be in this large group of people, and there'll be some people that say or do something or just exist, and I'll be like, I can't be one with them. That's weird. Like, we don't even have anything in common. And then I'll go, oh, there's that judgment again.
Yeah. Well, it was such a beautiful thing. I was in India studying with my teacher last February and, doing my second kind of level of the Kundalini work. And so I got to have a private meeting with him. And so I asked him, I said, is there anything in my practice that you see that, needs more support or that you could help? And I was like thinking of my physical practice, like my alignment, like, oh, you should move your legs this way during this. And what he said to me is just like running through my head almost daily, is that he's like, you give a lot of yourself and you need to be careful of the people who don't see what you're giving them and don't value that. And if you see that or come across that, let it go. Hari Om. Those people aren't for you, because you're going to lose a lot of energy. You're going to get drained. You're going to need to rest for a day because that person just received without consciously knowing what it is. And so I think about that a lot, because it's, again, like part of staying in your lane. If you're not creating these right relationships where there's some, balance and in the exchange, then that could come back and boomerang around to drain you or knock you out. And so there's a discernment thing, which is like, I accept you. I love that that's where you're working right now. And I also don't need to be next to you in that. And I don't have to support you in that, like support in a very tangible way, like whether it's offer services or offer, friendship, where I'm going to do this for you. And I think that we're working out a lot of that stuff right now. There's a lot of people working out the martyrdom codex. There's a lot of people working out that victim consciousness thing and that, kind of narcissistic wound. And there's these kind of things that are really important things to work out in your soul path. but that doesn't have to do with me. I don't
Yes.
have to be around that.
Yes.
You know, that's not where my growth is. I did that piece and I understand it and I can recognize it a mile away. I don't need to be, and it won't even come into my field. Actually, once you crystallize the learning and it's really dropped in and integrated, you won't see it come around. You won't get tested anymore. You won't get challenged.
Yes.
Yeah, because to be able to like anchor some of these teachings, we have to come to understanding about what it's all about. We can't just say, "Oh, I accept, I love, I forgive," da, 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 da. You know, it's like there's got to be some layer of like, "Oh, I understand how that lesson is getting me now to this step that I didn't even know was in the future stepping, you know, but is now here right underneath my foot." So I think that's something to keep in heart, is that it's not that you're like exiling your family or like exiling old friend groups or anything when you step in and you start to remember who you are. It's more that you just realize they're operating in different frequency and they're learning different lessons than you are. And you can coexist. We all are coexisting. It's already happening. And just send them love and compassion. And maybe, you know, something that doesn't create a lot of effort, you know, that of somebody that I send little messages to support that doesn't cost me anything, you know, and I know it benefits them a lot, but doing work one-on-one with them is just not an option right now. They're too far down a rabbit hole that doesn't relate to my psyche.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I've been working on I've been aware of it for the last probably year almost, is when I'm fully embracing myself and fully in my authenticity, the amount of shadow that casts and those that come at you, right? So it was a learning of how do I still stay in embracing my power and stay in my authenticity and stay completely who I am, even when that's coming at me. Because my general way of handling that would be to turtle shell, basically, you know, go back inside of my, okay, well, that's too much for you, so I'm gonna make myself a little smaller, because you can't handle it, and that's creating friction in my life.
Right.
So understanding that, and then interesting, once I figured that out, that's what was happening, all the messages started coming in of, you need to really embrace your power. You're so powerful. You have this gift that is ready to be seen. And then I went to, what does that mean? And how do I unlock that? So I guess my question to you is tools.
Yeah.
To really help us with this path that we're on and uncover because I think we all have unique gifts.
Yeah.
So uncovering those and embracing our power and authenticity.
Yeah. Well, I think something that people don't really name when they talk about the rising feminine is that part of the feminine, what the feminine carries and embodies, is being open to learning from the mystery, being willing to be in the unknown, being in that wild, open space and letting the intuition guide the way. And so I think we have to balance our finding out information by researching and, you know, and and, you know, digging into, or like trusting this person knows something I don't know. And then like, you know, it's true. Like we do learn from each other. Like we have, that's part of it, but that's a very masculine way of receiving the world. Whereas like the feminine way is to be your own explorer and go into these mystery places. And that's where I feel like the somatic tracking, because the body for me really holds the mysteries. It's like if we're doing our meditative practices, we're not trying to go up and out, we're not doing this TCM thing, you know, or whatever that is. I'm not trained in that, so don't quote me. I don't judge it either, because I think it was a valuable thing at the time when we needed to be able to connect to those higher dimensions and realms. We had that density of a net in the astral. But now it's like, no, we need to be embodied. So like in the meditation practice, let yourself really track inside. Let it be somatic. So tracking inside, where's the tension? Where's the stagnancy? Where are the places that you're you're feeling it, or like dead zones, or where there's no presence, or there's, and let's stay there. We're masters of avoidance of pain, but the way through, the only way to heal is to go through. And so the avoidance with, you name it, codependency, prescription medications up the wazoo, addictions, that's just a way to avoid what's right here, right now. And so in the meditations, if you go in right now, I feel like I've come to a level of mastery, but I'm doing Kundalini yoga every day. I'm teaching every day. I do the practice with my students. And so I'm breathing, and, something came through, old trauma patterning, ancestral, collective, and it's got my hips locked up. I have this whole neuropathy going on. My lower legs barely functioning. My feet are numb, and I'm just like, okay, so it is. So that's now what we're working with, and spending time being with that and letting the tremors of the tension that's been holding for so long in the muscles and the nerves, like letting that unfold, finding the vulnerability underneath that. That is not easy, but that is what's being called for right now, that mystery walk within the body in our meditations. And then, okay, sure, let someone guide you in a meditation, balance that. So that's almost a balancing of the masculine and feminine. I would say that's a new earth practice.
All right, guys, that was part 1 of our episode with Melanie. All of her information to get in touch with her will be in the show notes, her social media, and all of that. And stay tuned for part 2 because it gets real juicy.
Hope you enjoyed part 1. See you in part 2. Thank you for joining us in this sacred circle.
If today's conversation moved something in you, share it, journal it, or bring it into your next moment of love.
And remember, you're not alone. Z is here to support your journey anytime you need her.
Until next time, stay grounded, stay open, and stay true.
With love, always.